Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name, and I'm also a dev editor, fashion designer, and game dev. And this is Star Stable Month. So I want to talk about the reasons why players quit Star Stable. By their own release numbers, only 3% of the 21 million players who have subscribed to Star Stable log in and are active every month. In this video, I'm going to try to work out the reason why 97% of the players who pick up Star Stable leave the stable. I'm of the opinion if Star Stable Online wants to be taken seriously in the gaming landscape, then I'm going to treat their game seriously like every other game in the industry, holding it to the same standard. This means they might not like what I have to say very much. I'll try to be as objective as possible. It could be something as simple as being overwhelmed with all the front-loaded quests around Moorland and Silverglade. Or it could be realizing the in-game economy totally revolves around buying star coins for real-world money. To boredom. Or the game not being challenging. Or having mechanics you as a player want and can find in other games. The reason a player quits can be quite personal, from not having enough time or simply growing out of the game. If you're making a game, you want to have a few of these player quit points as possible. So let's talk specifically player quit points in Star Stable. Nothing to do. You don't have to like my opinion that Star Stable Online in its original form was a visual novel with some horse game mechanics tagged on. It's not an MMORPG in any sense of the word other than multiplayer and online. That's fine. We're allowed different opinions. Right now, it's degraded into a horse collection game with some story tacked on. So, the fact of the matter is, when you get to the end of the story, there is nothing to do to keep you emotionally invested from the game, and that is when players quit. There is a very easy way to mitigate this player exodus. Give more content. You know, given they have this weekly update schedule and most of their quests are fetch quests, edit out the unnecessary cutscenes and leave them for important stuff like Elizabeth's spoiler. This would go much faster. However, no new content. Unlike the original team making SSO, the later teams have focused more on horses and more horses than actually putting story and finishing or tying their story plot lines into the game. Since around 2016, the teams have added maybe an hour's worth of story every year. This includes running around. Maybe 10 quests at a time, if that. Some of them are very short. Talk to this person and turn around and talk to that person. They constantly leave off on cliffhangers. It's very frustrating if you're emotionally invested into the story for it to just stop and not be updated on a regular basis. There is a reason why most fanfictions and free stories posted to places like Wattpad or Royal Road are updated once a week. It keeps the players/readers invested. Updating your story once or twice a year in half-an-hour increments, which moves the story forward just a tiny bit, will not keep players. In a normal MMORPG type setting where they are doing expansions, the players are kind of trained to expect massive amounts of story with new systems and map or changes to the map every 2 years. But between those expansions and because they don't have player throttling like SSO does, there's a huge dip in player numbers. The expansions will have a big boost and then the players will go off to do other things. However, you'll have the players who will create new characters in old expansions to try different races or do different faction missions, etc., thus giving their players more content for their money and time and having them remember the story and lore between expansions. Unlike Star Stable, which is unable to replay old content, forgetting the story. You can't make a new character in Star Stable or replay the story in the game without making a new account. This boosts their subscriber number substantially. So I wouldn't trust that 21 million number at all. Sure, they might have 21 million emails, but they have less than 1 million players active. If you can't make a new character in your same account and replay the story from start to finish, and you drag the new story out, well, players forget the story. don't want to pay another $75 to experience it again. If it's out of order and bugged as well and stuff has been retconned, this is a player quit moment. They forget the story, they don't know what's going on, they're no longer emotionally invested. They leave. Very easy to fix. Allow multiple tunes on every account, up to 2 to 4, or allow a game mechanic to replay the story and get shillings as a reward. No experience. Unsatisfying story. And because the story has been dragged out incredibly long and cut up into tiny little chunks over multiple story directors, and so there have been multiple writing teams working on this narrative, they've gone back and had books written to replace or rewrite the original stories of Starshine and Legacy and change lore. This property is over 16 years old, and they've had players invested since the very beginning. Changing lore is a quit moment. These teams don't seem to have made each other notes or an outline, or they've just decided to toss the old lore book. I don't know. The story feels really disconnected. Lots of plots just feel forgotten, and there have been decisions made story and narrative-wise that don't make sense. Players don't like and end up feeling very unsatisfying. The longer you drag a story out, the more work that has to go into the completion of the story to make the story feel emotionally satisfying and justify the 10 to 12 month wait for yet more story. Time and time again, as a player, I have just felt so frustrated with how the story and how easy and unsatisfying it feels. As an author, I know the problems and can articulate the problems, but that'd be another video. And they can pay me. I'm not doing that one for free, folks. So if you don't like where the story is going as a player and you aren't into writing fanfiction, and sometimes if you are, this is a player quit moment. Right now, I bet I could write a fanfiction and finish the story long before Star Stable even expands out of New South York County. Once you finish the story, all that is left is racing in daily quests, which makes the game feel like work. Grind. Star Stable Online, once you finish the story, relies heavily on the player making their own fun in a sandbox type of way. At the same time, they don't provide any good systems to help the player make their own fun and set their own goals to accomplish. There is no player housing to decorate and redecorate. There isn't enough crafting to justify sticking around. There's no farming or resource gathering like mining or forestry to justify upping any life skills. Outside of the Explorer Find X, easy to program type of collection, there's no mechanical incentive to explore the map, which doesn't have any challenging or interesting mechanics tied to it to find secret places. Once you finish the story, it feels like work, not fun. And no one wants to do work in a game if there's no fun to offset it. I'm level 22, and right now I've got Maya. Still not finished reputation-wise, despite having daily tasks, because there's no real story incentive for me to care. I already know about Maya's parents. When a game feels like work and not fun, this is a player quit moment. Bad chat system. It's also really hard to make your own fun in this game because the chat system is so awful. Star Stable Online doesn't have any full-time game moderators watching the global chat to discourage spam and discourage bullying by doing in-game suspensions. They rely on a chat filter that currently won't let you post if you use a word on the unallowed list, and a chat bot that if you use a combination of innocent words can get you suspended from chat, and enough suspensions can get you banned from the game. And the game doesn't tell you what the combination or what word it is that got you suspended because it can take up to 10 minutes to half an hour to kick in, and customer service can't tell you either for some reason if you appeal. If you can't talk to your friends in game easily, and you are kicked for next to no reason, or you aren't told the reason despite seeing lots of spam and lots of kids getting around the filter to create bad words out of normal words, then this is a player quit moment. This is also a very legal-liable moment for Star Stable because this encourages players who are under the age of majority to seek out other chat systems like Discord, where Star Stable can't keep an eye on things and they could be encouraged to share their name, their whereabouts, their user information, including passwords, and so on and so forth. This is extremely bad for player safety, especially kids who aren't quite as aware of online safety rules that have been abandoned since I was a teenager for no good reason. It makes them vulnerable to predators, which then Star Stable doesn't kick for being predators. By running players off to Discord, it also gives Star Stable this excuse to say, oh, if you're hacked, it's your fault because you shared your info, and you can't prove a negative. It's just a bad situation all around. And if a teenager can't talk to their friends, they're not going to want to stick around with the game. That's a player quit moment. Removal of nostalgia. Let's touch again on Star Stable Entertainment putting out books and changing the backstory and lore from Starshine Legacy. There is a huge amount of nostalgia in this franchise. You wouldn't think being so how small it is and it doesn't have its own movie or TV show. There are a lot of players who got Starshine Legacy way back when it was put out through Pony Club and fell in love with the Soul Riders vs. Dark Core and Garnock Science Portal fiction story. And early players who could get the discs were introduced to it or maybe watched a Let's Play on YouTube and also fell in love with those stories and the characters in those stories and the way they looked. And the game had a set look between 2011 and 2017. For 6 years, the game had a certain, rather hodgepodge still, style to it. A style that drew a certain type of player. Then they put out the books, then they started to change their game graphic style in 2017, and have over time been reworking areas of the game. They've redone Valedale and Firgrove, and they've changed out trees and bushes from a rather realistic, if grainy style, to something very saturated and cartoonish in flavor. Think World of Warcraft. The latest area they've changed is Silverglade Village. And by now, they've run off most of the older players, but even the middle-term players are saying they'll have to get used to it. The older players aren't happy. The reason is this isn't the game they bought. These aren't the styles and looks of the areas of the game they played. There is no longer emotional attachment to these areas because they look so different from the original versions. The nostalgia is gone both from the story and from the look of the game. Why play when it's not the game or story they paid to play? This is a player quit moment. You lose the emotion, you've lost the player. More content / gameplay being added / promised to Star Stable Horses app than SSO. I don't know how many people have actually noticed this one. It was a small paragraph at the bottom of a news article. Back when Star Stable Horses was introduced in the Spring Full event that was, surprise, surprise, never done again, it must have been main story and not an event, I guess, I was very wary of the idea of an app where you could race an app-limited foal to a level 10 horse and transfer it to the game. I mean, in a game where the idea is you're supposed to bond with your horse, we have no real bonding with our horse mechanics, and look, bonding with horse mechanics in an app. I have no idea why this wasn't going into the game itself, because it's a free app. Like, the money comes in when you funnel you to Star Stable Online to be able to ride your horse around in an open world. That is how the app is being funded. I don't know if they were trying to get views on the mobile app stores for Star Stable in order to try and convert mobile users to the PC game, and then when they realized that might not work, decided to create a mobile portal to the PC game. Given the mobile gamer and the PC gamer are in general two different markets, I don't think this was the best idea either, but they want that mobile game money, 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 I guess. I had this dreaded feeling there was a kind of a beginning to the end here, where if they weren't willing to add raise the full mechanics to the game they had, they just weren't going to add new mechanics at all and really start focusing more on mobile development rather than the game that is making them a ton of money for the market they're in and could make more if they just worked on it. They are now saying another company is taking over the development of Star Stable Horses, and they want to add in new daily tasks, farming, and I'm going to assume limited time seasonal type events to Star Stable Horses, when the main game, though having foals in it, still doesn't have the ability to raise and train a foal to level 10, and well, I don't see us getting farming anytime soon. I'm not going to go into the seasonal events here. To me, if I can do more in Star Stable Horses when the story is done than I can do in the main game, then this is a player quit moment. And this also leads to our next point. Removal of mechanics / events / story and lack of good mechanics to begin with. Star Stable is a fairly simple game mechanically when it first came out. The challenge of making Star Stable is basically the mount system, making it so the reins and the rider don't clip into the horse and doing accurate-ish riding and horse movement animations. The game evolved around fetch quests and racing where the primary attribute was speed. There was a jump mechanic for the horse, not for the rider, and a slowdown mechanic also for the horse. Player being able to crouch was added later. Between the Star Stable seasonal rider games and the Star Stable online games, they took out a bunch of mechanics. The biggest mechanic they took out was the endurance mechanic. In the older games before Star Stable Online, the horse could only run full out and at a gallop for a set amount of time before it would drop down into a canter. Then you had to wait for the bar to fill up again before you could run again. Now this made it more challenging to do endurance races and steeplechases. There was even a mechanic in Autumn Riders where you could feed your horse on the run to make it go faster. In Autumn Riders, you could also gather grass to feed your horse. Then the rest of the mechanics they took out were bars to monitor the hunger, thirst, and dirtiness of your horse. If your horse got too thirsty or hunger, it would perform worse until you found a spot on the map to take care of it. There was a little heart to tell you if you took care of your horse well, it loved you. Star Stable Online took all of that out, along with the ability to control your stats. As they added areas to the map, they added some more unique mechanics of their own. In Dino Valley, you needed to have a horse that had high cold tolerance to move at normal speeds. This encouraged the buying of horses like the North Swedish and the Ford horse. Then when Pandoria was finally added into Star Stable Online for a long while, the only horse you could take into it was your starter horse, or your soul steed. Well, you can say goodbye to that too. Any horse can go into Dino Valley. Any horse can go into Pandoria, though I wouldn't do quests in there except on your starter horse because those quests still have the starter horse requirement. And then, in the spirit of the game accessibility, which is a huge industry buzzword, they took out the auto slowdown feature of the game. They've also come back and removed large sections of gameplay tied to game reputation factions and changed it to tedious grind. They've decided to move Valentine's, Galentine's, Easter, and St. Patrick's from the game. They've also removed the fashion event, the iceberg, and the potato festival, and probably the fashion market. They also, though this might be a this year only, didn't do the Fort Pinta Beach Festival. Despite all the money rolling into the game from dedicated players who give hundreds if not thousands of suggestions to customer service on every social media channel and to the ambassadors to forward to the team, the gameplay of Star Stable is not moving forward. It's not evolving in a positive direction. It's regressing. Things are out of order, things have been removed, things are stuck or inaccessible so players can't progress in the game. According to employee reviews on Glassdoor, if employees come to management with an idea that could make the game better, they are given a price tag for said idea, despite the oodles of money rolling in. I mean, if a game is making $26 to $44 million a year, why isn't it getting better? The answer is pretty simple. The corporate overlords in Star Stable Entertainment are a microcosm of the industry overall. They only care about the money, and the collectible palette swap horses bring in the money. So projects like player housing and the nail salon were all regulated to Fridays when the employees can work on whatever they feel is going to help the game. But they also have a revolving door of employees. If the employee who is working on something cool, like player housing, ups and leaves, well, their code is probably so idiosyncratic, no one else can read it. It has to be tossed, and there goes player housing, which they have sort of technically promised. If the players see the game isn't changing for the better with new systems and new mechanics and things they want, like the ability to change the stats on their gear or change the color or even craft more gear than the druid sets, and the game itself is actually getting worse mechanically and becoming easier and stuff they enjoyed in the game is gone, this is a player quit moment. Next time, I'm going to continue with yet more reasons why players quit Star Stable. Thank you for joining me. Take care of yourselves, my lovelies. Bless, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.